everyone, and welcome to a special Halloween episode of WilCo on the Go. I am here at the historic Cedar Grove Cemetery in Lebanon, Tennessee with Mr. Rick Bell. Rick is our city historian here in Lebanon, but he's also a history professor at Cumberland University. Thank you so much for joining us today. And some of you might be thinking, what does a cemetery have anything to do with tourism? Well, we are actually sitting on part of the Civil War trails, which is the state of Tennessee sponsors this program where you can visit some historically significant Civil War sites throughout the state of Tennessee. And Cedar Grove Cemetery is actually one of them. We have over 150 soldiers who fought in the Civil War buried here in Cedar Grove Cemetery. We also just announced that Cedar Grove Cemetery has just been inducted into the Tennessee Music Pathways program, where it's very similar to the Civil War pathways, where you can go and see some historically significant musical spots throughout Tennessee. And the reason why Cedar Grove Cemetery has been selected on that program is because songwriter Curly Putnam is buried here. He lived in Lebanon, Tennessee. So that's, I guess, where my knowledge is exhausted of Cedar Grove Cemetery. So can you tell me a little bit more about maybe some historically significant people who are buried here?
Well, sure. Since you mentioned Curly Putnam, he wrote Green, Green Grass of Home, which has been recorded over 300 times by 300 different artists, I believe. And he also wrote
Elvis Presley.
Yes, Elvis recorded that. And he also wrote He Stopped Loving Her Today, which many people consider the greatest country music song of all time. So it's great that we're on the music trail for Curly, and he was a great citizen of our city.
Yes, and it's hot off the press, brand new knowledge that we just have.
Well, good. Cedar Grove Cemetery is a historic site for more than just that, though. Every grave has a story, and all those stories add up to build the history of our city and the history of our county. And today I just want to talk about a few of the people who are buried here and what they contributed not only to our city and our county, but to our state and our nation as well.
Well, please, I'd love to hear about the first person you have for us. Who might that be?
Well, the first person is Bowen Campbell.
Okay.
Mr. Campbell, he was born in Sumner County in 1807. He became a lawyer, and he opened up a law office in Carthage, not too far away from here. But it wasn't too long before he got into politics. And in 1837, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, and he served Tennessee up there for 5 or 6 years. And then war broke out. The United States went to war with Mexico, and he gave up his position and volunteered to go fight. Tennessee's the volunteer state, and he was one of the people who did that. He was a colonel, and he fought in several battles, the most famous of which was the Battle of Monterrey, which was in Mexico. And then he came back as someone who had political experience. He was a war hero, and he ran for governor in 1851, and he won that race. But even though he won, that race epitomized the time period because his opponent branded him a friend of the North. Everybody knows that the Civil War started in 1861, which is why there's a Civil War trail here. But what a lot of people don't realize is the build-up to that war took a long time. And the 1850s was the decade when, emotions were boiling over, politics were really getting split, and a lot of Southern politicians were being accused of being Northern sympathizers. And Bowen Campbell was one of those. After serving one term, he decided to leave politics. Perhaps it was because of the controversy that was going on. He was a person who, as people talked about secession, he felt like Tennessee should stay in the Union. So he left politics, and he got a job as the president of the Bank of Middle Tennessee here in Lebanon. And that's how he got to our city. He spent the 1850s as president of that bank. During that decade, the politics kept getting more fractious. And then eventually in 1861, obviously the Civil War started and the states began to split. A lot of people in Tennessee felt like that Tennessee should stay with the Union. He was one of those. He made speeches about that. And that's one of those things that people don't realize about the time period. People talk about North versus South, but actually it was split up more than that. Towns were split over this issue. States were split over this issue. And Tennessee was one of those. Tennessee eventually seceded, but Bowen Campbell remained loyal. And during the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln appointed him Brigadier General for the Union Army, which means that he is one of 2 Brigadier Generals buried in Cedar Grove Cemetery. The other is Robert Hatton, who has a statue on the square, and he was a Brigadier General for the Confederacy. So that shows you that friends were split, towns were split, and those 2 gentlemen, they're a really good example of that. However, Campbell did not stay a general very long. His health wasn't good, and he also did not want to fight against his friends. So he resigned his commission. However, when the Civil War was over, in 1866, he was once again elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. But unfortunately, his health got worse. In 1867, he passed away at his home, Campbell, which still stands on Coles Ferry Pike here in town. And he is buried here in Cedar Grove Cemetery. However, he is still remembered because Fort Campbell is named in his honor.
That is such an interesting fact there.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
Yeah, so that's the story of William Bowen Campbell.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story with us. And I'm sure you have many more stories that hopefully we'll be able to share soon. So thank you guys so much for joining us on this episode of WilCo on the Go. And stay tuned for more fun Halloween episodes.